it'd be good to hear a little bit about the primary approach to AGI that you're pursuing now in your research, which is focused on the hypervectors and the recommendation architecture.
Right. So, uh, kind of going back to the resource constraint thing, which I'll talk about a lot because that's one of my main cornerstones. Um, a lot of times people look at resource constraints using the word constraints, and that kind of implies that it's something that we don't really like, but it's necessary, or something kind of like death, right? Where it's like, oh, well, it has some advantages, but if we could get rid of it, that would be cool. And for me, I've begun to think about it in a totally different way, which is resource constraints might actually be a feature and not a bug, for all the programmer nerds out there. But um, if you look at evolution and you say, okay, how has the system evolved within these constraints? It could have evolved to find some way to include more and more resources, right? Like some slime thing that's continuing to grow and go, or like the Borg from Star Trek, where the whole goal is to continue to assimilate other resources into your colony. And for me, I think that looking for something that is using resources, like a limitation of resources, which I don't even like the word limitation, but leveraging having few resources and using that as a foundation to build a system that has emergent properties, that's where I've begun to dig into the research and the literature to try to understand what are the properties which allow that. And I like to think of it as kind of this weird mix up between compression and combinatorial explosion. So if you have something that can compress information into like smaller packets, right? And then you can combine those packets endlessly in almost any combination to get bigger things that are more meaningful or have more structure, then what you end up with is a lot of combinatorial power, right? You're able to mix and match all sorts of pieces until you can get almost anything you desire out of the system. And of course, there's always limits to how you can combine things, right? There has to be some structure. Otherwise, our brains would just be like seeing patterns and colors, and like we wouldn't be able to make sense of the world. So they try to,
That's what I'm doing most of the time. I don't know about you. Yeah, I do have synesthesia. Yeah, I see music as
oh,
like
cool.
translucent shifting patterns all over the place, and sometimes it takes some work to damp it down, which comes down to resource constraints. It's fun to watch the shifting patterns, but sometimes you don't have time to do that all day, right?